What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Sit Down Saturday. And I got bad news for you. I'm not going to have any cleanup this week either. There's not going to be any cleanup for the next couple weeks because I have a very hectic October every year, annually. It's a nightmare. So I've been busting my tail day and night to get plenty of content done so that I can have it ready to go so that you guys won't skip a beat and my life can kind of continue going. So I will be at TFCon in Reston. I'll have a table there. Come by, say what's up, shake hands, walk away with something, but make sure you come by and say what's up. I'm not sure which week this one's coming out. This might be the MPB week. If so, I'm sure you guys got plenty to say about that. But what we'll do is when we come back after TFCon, so the first Sit Down Saturday in November, we'll have a very lengthy conversation that's just catching up. But until then, I gotta kind of just keep the wheels moving for right now. So a lot of people have been saying, where are the Bayverse Breakdowns? Are you going to continue doing them? Yes, we've just had a lot to talk about. There's just been stuff that has come up that has taken precedent. I do this kind of stuff when stuff starts to simmer down. So simmer down now, and we're going to go ahead and get to this. This is going to be the fifth and final installment of the kind of proper Bayverse, and then we're going to do Bumblebee, and then we're going to do another one talking about all of it like conclusively. So just bear with me. I'll do them as soon as I have time. I hope to get all of them done this year. That was my goal, and so far so good. I got this and then one more, right? And then the conclusion. So I'm almost there. The hard work is almost done. With that being said, let's talk about it. Transformers The Last Night. Let's start with the plot. So it starts off with the flashback scene in the Dark Ages where there's a fight going on between the British and some sort of barbaric tribe. Merlin is there and he gets the staff from the Guardian Knights, or another remnant of Transformers that are stranded on Earth, crashed here some time ago because their ship has lots of moss and stuff growing on it. He hands it off to Arthur for the round table bit and says one day a great evil will come for it. Meanwhile, Optimus Prime is frozen in space, which is super funny to me because when you leave in Transformers 4, he's like, I'm coming for you. And it's like, you're coming to me for what? To freeze and float in space like an idiot for a couple years? What are you doing? Who are you coming for like that? How's that threatening? It reminds me of a Jeremy Hotz stand-up bit where he was talking about the Canadian flag and how it's a leaf and you shouldn't mess with them or they'll dry up and blow away. I kind of get that same vibe from this bit, this whole I'm coming for you. It's like, I'm in my head, if you like, 'cause it's not funny if you're seeing it kind of in the films, you know, with a couple years between films, right? But it's like, if you see it all in one bit, like, I'm coming for you. Sorry. It's just, I don't know, silly. Alright, but he does land on Cybertron, where he meets Quintessa, who we all thought was going to be the Quintessons, and I could have told you it wouldn't have been, because that's not how this company does business in regards to filmmaking. But Quintessa is the quote-unquote maker, and she's mad that Cybertron has been destroyed. She had her staff stolen by the 12 Guardians, who hid it on Earth, and she says to Optimus that it can bring life back to Cybertron. She wants Prime to find it for her, and makes him Nemesis Prime, and explains that Earth is Unicron, and wants Prime to kill Unicron. And Prime, with Quintessa and the current kind of state of Cybertron, all head to Earth. Meanwhile on Earth, Transformers are illegal. There's a new US division, because if there's one thing about the United States, we love to make a new division, and we'll create a whole pocket for them, and we'll give them all huge salaries, and then that's just the way that we do business. We throw people and money at it until it goes away. So we did the same thing here. I couldn't just give the Canadians a hard time. But the branch is called the TRF, and they hunt down Transformers who keep coming to Earth, by the way, which is where we meet Isabella, or Isabel and Scooty. It's Ray and BB-8, right? Coming off of the success of Force Awakens, they use this as a huge marketing element, but it doesn't really tie into the story much. She's an orphan, the Decepticons killed her family, and she actually ends up being hunted pretty early on in the film, but Mark Wahlberg is there who saves her, but simultaneously gets kind of infected by the talisman, which is connected to the sword, it's connected to the staff. Like, there's a lot of MacGuffins in this movie, but they're all kind of interconnected to one another. Just think of a live-action Transformers movie and you've kind of got the idea. We find out that Cade is with Hound, Drift, Crosshairs, the Dinobots, and also baby Dinobots that they don't really explain and it doesn't make any sense, as well as Wheelie. But before all that, there's a little beef between Barricade and Bumblebee, and then a beef with Bumblebee and the humans, and in the process of all that, Bumblebee gets a tracker put on him, which is how they're able to track Bumblebee to the base where all of these other bots are. Barricade, of course, is also looking for the talisman to bring back to Megatron. Side note, during that bit, B is blown into 100 pieces and then all comes back together. Just another notion of how I say that the death and the rules regarding life and death in this universe are very inconsistent. Now, shortly after this, we meet Megan Fox 2.0, who I'm going to call Megan Fox and the Hound. Think of her as a less sexy yet somehow more attractive version. Think of ex-Transbots kind of 2.0 versions, where something got better and something got worse. We also meet Anthony Hopkins and Cogman, who is a headmaster, which is more of a play on words than an actual function. And we learn that Unicron horns are popping up all over Earth. 6 of them, I believe, to be exact. Preparing for the coming of Cybertron, Unicron is ready to kind of fight against Cybertron, but that doesn't actually ever happen. Meanwhile, Megatron negotiates with the humans and gets a bunch of Decepticons released in some sort of Suicide Squad montage, 2 of which are dispatched shortly thereafter. And that thereafter is when the Decepticons and the government attack our heroes. In the process, meet Cogman, who takes Marky Mark and Bumblebee back to England. Simultaneously, Megan Fox and the Hound is abducted as well to meet them by Hot Rod. And we learn that Hawkins is part of a long legacy of humans throughout history that have protected the secrecy of the Transformers. Him, Spike Witwicky, and many other famous people from the Wright brothers to Frederick Douglass. We learn that the staff is buried with Merlin, and only descendants of the staff can actually wield it. And Megan Fox and the Hound is the only descendant we're working with. So they go searching for the staff, they get inside a submarine, they go to the bottom of the sea, Merlin's tomb is there, evil, angry Prime shows up, kills a few Guardians that are there, and takes the staff back to the surface. But the whole ship rises to the surface that the Guardians and the staff were on, which leads to a fight of Bumblebee versus Prime. B speaks in his normal tongue, which wakes Prime up. He comes to his senses, but kind of just in time for the Decepticons to show up and take the staff from him. Shortly thereafter, the Guardians then show up and beat the Otterbox off of Prime, but Cade saves him just in the nick of time. Cybertron begins to connect to Earth. Prime, the Knights, the humans, and the Autobots, with the exception of the Dinobots, I'm not sure why, versus Quintessa and the Decepticons. Battle ensues. It's pretty much everything you would expect from a Transformers live-action film battle. There's lasers, there's bullets, there's bazookas, there's explosions, there's slow motion, there's people sliding around and Transformers sliding around. Even little Scoots get some action. It's Scoots, right? BB-8 gets some action. Optimus kind of works through the Decepticon ranks, kicks Megs off of a high ground, so to speak, which implies that Megatron is kind of ended that way, but in this movie, he turns into a jet, like some sort of space jet, so I'm not sure why he didn't just come right back to the fight. That doesn't make any sense to me. Bumblebee kills Quintessa, Megan Fox and the Hound stops the process of Cybertron taking on Earth. The Transformers kind of all return to Cybertron, and we learn that Quintessa is still on Earth, so the drama is still around. This is a rough one. This is a real rough one. But you know what I like to do here? What I like to do is the inverted compliment sandwich. So we've just dealt with a fair amount of negative, and now we're going to deal with a bit of positive. Let's talk about the good. The effects look better than ever, as they should, because we're kind of advancing technology and so on and so forth. Marvel and, ILM and Lucasfilm are kind of all pushing that envelope leaps and bounds kind of year by year, so Transformers is benefiting from that, and it shows. The color palette and cinematography is beautiful. That's one thing that I'll never take away from Michael Bay or whoever his cinematographer is. The dude knows how to make a dramatic looking shot, and he knows how to saturate colors to make it look interesting and vivid. But the single best scene in this entire movie is watching Anthony Hopkins get blown through the air. And I love Anthony Hopkins. It's certainly not personal, but I know it's supposed to be impactful and emotional, but it's so bloody funny to me. I probably rewound it back 6 times. I couldn't get a grip on myself. I was an absolute mess. But yeah, that's That's good stuff. We also get to see a combiner kind of take form, and I don't mean in the kind of Devastator way that we saw in the second one, but it's more of what we kind of imagine as a combiner, and it's not hateful. It's not right, and it doesn't give you the good feels, but it's close. It's it's in the pocket. It's it's not on the dance floor, but it can hear the music, is what my dad used to say. When he was golfing and the ball would land right before the green, he would be like, it's not on the dance floor, but it can hear the music. But it's good to see. There's also this part where he's fighting them, and he says, "Did you forget who I am?" And he cuts all their heads off, which is a little weird and a bit much, but I do like that line in and of itself. The problem with that line will kind of bring us into some of the ugly and the bad. I'm not sure how anyone could forget who he is. He says, "I am Optimus Prime" 3 different times in this film. Completely unwarranted. The people know who you are, dude. You're got a truck chest and you got the ears. It's a dead giveaway. They know. It's like Batman having to say it 3 times in a film. You usually get it once, and I'm okay with once. 3 times, too much. You might say it's 2 times too much. Let's stay on the bad. So much could be cut out of this movie. So much. And it's 2 hours and 34 minutes. But to give you a couple examples, the initial meeting with Cade and Megan Fox and the Hound and Anthony Hopkins, the initial meeting where they talk is pretty much just banter. And you don't really need that for any bit of the rest of the film. It doesn't really lead to any of the character elements, and they kind of continue bantering throughout, so they could have just had that. They didn't need that initial interaction, and it slows the whole pacing down of the film, and you don't really get anything of it. They could have just had it as they enter into the room and kind of give you the nuts and bolts of the plot. It's the same thing for the World War II flashback with Bumblebee. Completely unnecessary. Serves no purpose. Another thing that's just a problem over the arc of all these films, the stories just don't link up properly. There's too many new characters in this one that don't ultimately matter, and you mix that in with a fair amount of MacGuffins that nobody really cares about because we're so desensitized to so many MacGuffins that have taken place over the 4 previous films. And speaking of being desensitized, the end fight sequence in this thing is like Michael Bay turned up to 11. And it's too much. You don't care. And it's a half hour of it. But halfway through it, you're like, I don't even feel any kind of threat from this anymore because I can't even make sense of what's going on between explosions. I think that people that are just kind of action movie buffs and aren't really into film or whatever, like that would just go see this on a Friday night with their girlfriend or a couple of the fellas, I think that this would even be too much for them. Like, I think it would be it's just too much. But of course, what is a Michael Bay film without the ugly when it comes to Transformers? And there's plenty here. For one, Barricade wears brass knuckles that have words spelled out on them. Like, for what, dude? So dumb. Staying in that same lane, you have Transformers saying punk. You have Transformers with big gold link chains around their neck. You have Transformers taking place in some sort of awkward Suicide Squad montage. It's just like, dude, it's like not only do you not understand Transformers, you don't understand hip-hop culture either. So just stay away from you don't know anything about. It's kind of my general advice. Also, we get plenty more Transformers roughhousing with each other. There's that weird date on the submarine that Megan Fox and the Hound and Marky Mark have, and then on top of that, there's also this like constant need to connect the Transformers to different points in history, but the problem is they're connected now to so many points in history that it's meaningless. They're connected to the pyramids. They're connected to Stonehenge. They're connected to the extinction event. There's just so many different elements of history that they're now connected to that seeing a new one doesn't really do anything for the lore. It doesn't impress you, it doesn't wow you, it doesn't move you, and it doesn't move the story. But I do want to end on a good note in regards to the kind of critique of this thing. This is the least amount of kind of potty humor in all of it. The only thing that's in there, I think I'd actually give it a pass, is there's this scene where Marky Mark and Megan Fox and the Hound are looking through the office and they're mashing stuff up and knocking stuff over and kind of being an elephant in a china shop or a bull in a china shop, and the dialogue that's coming from it sounds like rough intimacy, right? And her mom is downstairs and her family's downstairs and they're kind of eavesdropping and getting a very different perspective on what's going on upstairs. But I don't think like my kids would pick up on that. You know what I mean? So like I give that a pass. It's only when it's like so blatant that it bothers me. I'm okay for there being stuff in there for adults to kind of chuckle at, as long as it doesn't take away for anything for the kids. So good on them. That's a big improvement over the course of these 5 films, especially if you look at how far they went left at some points. And we'll close it out with the timeline. We get basically 3 new things here. We get that they were definitely involved between 500 AD and 1000 AD. That's the Dark Ages. And we also get that the Transformers were here during World War II and active. They've kind of been here throughout. We get that in that brief little history lesson, but we do get that. Look, this movie is terrible. I would probably give it a 3 out of 10. Like, there's no element to really grab onto. They waste so much time investing information into these humans, Megan Fox and the Hound, Anthony Hopkins, and even Ray and BB-8, that while they're doing that, the plot of this movie actually has more to do with the Transformers, which is what we want. But they stay in the character development lane of the humans. And the problem is at the end, the Transformers story is summed up feeling no connection to it because you're not connected to the Transformers, and the human stories are left unresolved, which is like unfulfilling because those are the characters that they've actually introduced and now you feel invested in. We had this whole thing talked about with Cade and his daughter and their relationship and the kind of struggles at which it is right now because they have to stay kind of separated from one another. That's not really resolved. The Sector 7 guys stuff we kind of dabble in, but there's no real meat there. The Ray and BB-8 thing, like she's like this orphan, they give you a lot of information on her up front and then they don't really dig back into it. And with the Transformers leaving, it's like, does she really have a family? It's like, it's so confused, I think, in its intent. And that's where the problem is with this one. It's just 2.5 hours of 2 stories that don't really have much to do with satisfying the other. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.